Text by Hinton, Chapter 7, Part 2. The light blinded me. I hung on to something next to me to keep from falling into the white space. I heard the voice again, and this time I could make out the words. What's going on? It was Pop. And I heard Mason's voice saying roughly, nothing is going on. He's having a nightmare, that's all. My eyes adjusted to the light. It was just the bedroom, not some big, expansive, empty white space. I was sitting on the edge of the bed like I was ready to get up and go somewhere. I was in a cold, sick sweat. I slowly realized I was clutching Mason's arm in a grip that'd leave bruises, and I tried to let go. I'm okay, I whispered. Gosh, Tex, do you still have nightmares? I thought you outgrown that. I shook my head, still unable to talk too much. We were kidnapped at gunpoint not too long ago, Mason said. I reckon that could give anybody nightmares. I've dreamed about it myself. Sorry I woke y'all up, I said, trying to convince myself I really was awake, that the terror was over. I'm okay now. I dug my fingers out of Mason's arm and tried my best to look okay. I couldn't quit shivering. Pop looked dubious. You sure? Yeah, I didn't mean to be hollering. Well, maybe we can all get back to sleep now. You guys have to be at school pretty early. Pop switched off the light and went back to his sleeping bag on the couch. I swung myself back under the quilts. Mason crawled back around to his side. Mace, I said, you really have nightmares about that hitchhiker? Yeah, he said. I figure they'll go away pretty soon. I was quiet. I don't think that's what I was dreaming about, I said finally. I didn't figure it was, he said. I never did dream about the hitchhiker, and what's more, I didn't think about him much. All that seemed unimportant now that Pop was back and Negrito was coming home. I did kind of get a kick out of the fuss people made over me at school, though. Nobody else in the whole school had ever been kidnapped, and only one other kid had been on the news, and that had been in grade school in a spelling bee. Miss Carlson was absent that day, and we had a substitute teacher. We did all the usual things we do to substitutes. Coughing at exactly 1 minute till, forming lines at the pencil sharpener, till she slapped a pop quiz on us. I got the feeling she'd been a substitute teacher before. Before class was over, she sent me to the office for talking. It wasn't my fault, really. Everybody wanted to know about the hitchhiker. Fortunately, Mrs. Johnson saw my side of it. Just told me to not let fame go to my head. While I was in the office, I heard somebody say Miss Carlson had gone to a funeral. And then somebody else said it was the hitchhiker's funeral. That bothered me. It took the fun out of being famous. I never thought about him having a funeral or somebody going to it if he did. I hadn't thought about anybody missing him. When Miss Carlson showed up the next day, I decided to find out for sure. Miss Carlson, I said, standing at her desk after everybody else had gone on to their next class. Somebody told me you went to that guy's funeral, the one the highway patrol shot. Yes, she said. I did. She didn't look like she was mad at me about it. She had real long eyelashes. I bet she was good looking when she was young. Was he a relative or something? That was what I was afraid of. No, not even a friend, really. She paused, like she was hunting for the right words. Finally, she said, I read a book once that ended with the words, the incommunicable past. You can only share the past with someone who shared it with you. So I can't explain to you what Mark was to me exactly. I knew him a long time ago. I stood there, feeling like I do when I bump into things, not knowing what to do. I'm sorry. Miss Carlson shook her head. Tex, please don't let it worry you. I'm sad about what happened, but not surprised. She glanced down into her grade book. Now, whatever happened to that other book report? I couldn't wait till the end of the month. Negrito would be coming home. Pop didn't get his old job back at the cement plant, but he got another one at the feed mill pretty quick. Pop never had much trouble getting jobs. People tend to like him. The day he was due home with his first 2-week paycheck, I went bouncing through school like a ricocheting bullet. Somehow, I didn't get sent to the office, though. Johnny broke the speed limit getting me home. Riding double on his machine was breaking the law anyway, so it didn't take much to get him to break too. Then It was an hour to wait till Pop got home. I thought I was going to go nuts. I went up to the horse pen and straightened up a couple of sagging fence posts and tacked up a strand of loose barbed wire. I'd spent the week before putting the rails back up on the pickup, so we'd have something to cart him home in. Negrito loaded surprisingly easy for a high-strung horse. All you had to do was show him a bucket of grain in the truck. Pop wasn't home an hour later. Another hour later, he still wasn't home. I got to thinking he had a car wreck. Mason came in, hot and sweaty from jogging. No, I don't think he had a wreck, Mason said, dropping into a kitchen chair and gulping buttermilk straight from the carton. It just slipped his mind. Nah, something happened. Nothing happened except somebody probably asked him to stop off and have a beer. About that time, the phone rang. I let Mason get it. He got most of the phone calls at our house. A lot of them from girls. Oh yeah, well, what about going to get Texas's horse back? Forget about that. I went sick inside. Pop had forgot. Damn, Mason. I got so tired of him being right all the time. Yeah, I know where he is. Sure, I'll do it. Will the check bounce? How much? Pop, I'll have to offer more than they paid me for him. Okay, yeah, sure. Good luck. Mason came back in the kitchen. Me and you'll have to go after him. Pop's in a pool tournament over in Broken Arrow. No telling how long he'll be there. Says he's sorry. He just clean forgot. Well, at least he's giving me the money to get him back, I said defensively. I thought I was supposed to be the stubborn one in this family, Mason said. My disappointment was beginning to fade. I was getting excited again. Well, come on, let's go. No way. I gotta take a bath first. Mason, it'll just take 10 minutes. I started swearing at him, but he went on to the bathroom anyway. I had to resist an urge to go hold his head underwater. We got on the road finally. We had to drive clear to Muskogee. Boy, you really made sure I couldn't find him again, didn't you? I said. That would have been all I needed, you getting arrested for horse stealing. You're the one that should have been arrested, I said. Mason didn't say anything. We drove through Muskogee and turned down a blacktop road. It was getting dark, but you could see we were driving through a little housing development. The houses were each set on a couple of acres of land. You know your way around here pretty well, I remarked. I came out here to look the place over first. I told you I made sure those horses got good homes, didn't I? Him and his truth hang-up, I thought sourly. Then I brightened up as we turned into a driveway. I heard hoofbeats as soon as we got out. I'll be around back, I shouted. Mason went to the front door. He could take care of the business end of it. I wanted to see Negrito. There were floodlights turned on over a small wood corral in back. Negrito was tearing around some barrels, set up for barrel racing. Even though he could turn on a dime and hand you back a nickel change. I had never done barrel racing with him and was amazed to see how good he'd caught on to it in so short a time. After bending around the last barrel to ship, his rider's foot nearly touched the ground. Negrito flattened out in a dead gallop finish. When she pulled him up, he was blowing through his nose and snorting, the way he did when he was happy. I decided I could take up barrel racing if he liked it so much. His rider saw me. She nudged Negrito in a canter and had him do a sliding stop at the fence where I stood. Who are you? She asked. I didn't even look at her. Negrito was so surprised to see me that his ears were practically touching and he kept nickering from way down in his chest. I had all I could do to keep from grabbing him around the neck and crying. He used to be my horse, I said. I reached out and stroked his neck. Man, he was clean. He must have been brushed morning, noon, and night to be that clean. It's a mess trying to get dust out of a winter coat. You're not the boy we bought him from, the girl said. Her voice sounded stiff. For the first time I looked at her, seeing her, she was about 12 or 13, blonde, freckled, braced, her eyes a light sky color from behind her glasses. That was my brother. I didn't know he was selling him. It was sort of an accident. The girl slid off and stood by Negrito's head, holding the reins tight, like she thought I might grab them away from her. We paid for him, she said. It was fair and square. Sure, I said. Negrito was nibbling on my sleeve, the way he would just before biting a hunk out of you. I was getting so sick I couldn't see good. They weren't going to sell him. I wasn't going to get him back. Like, she knew what I was thinking. The girl said, "He's my horse now." I looked around at the nice little paddock with an open-faced barn. They didn't need the money. They could feed him through the winter. She wouldn't come home from school and find that paddock empty. "I had a pony, but he died," she was saying. "I didn't think I'd ever want another horse. Nicky was a birthday present." Didn't even get his name right, I thought bitterly. I asked Negrito how he liked it here. "Oh, great, man, great." His head bobbed up and down. "Good food, good fun, lots of attention." I didn't remind him I'd given him lots of attention, too. Horses are like real little kids. Now is what's important. "He bites," I said to the girl, not looking at her, still patting Negrito's neck. "I know." He put on weight, but he'd been worked enough to turn it into hard muscle. His thick winter coat was like velvet. "He spooks at things, too," I said. "I know." "He ain't really scared, though. He's mostly just playing. I never hit him for it. You shouldn't hit a horse unless you really have to." I turned to her. Her face was stiff, and she kept wrapping the reins around her wrists. "I know." I heard Mason honking for me. I knew he hadn't been able to make a deal. I leaned my head against Negrito's neck for a second. Horses really smell good. "He missed you," the girl said suddenly. I looked at her, and she seemed to be sorry she let me have that much at first. I gave Negrito a final pat and turned away. "I know," I said. "He just wouldn't sell. I offered him more than they gave for him, but he didn't even listen. Said his kid was happy with the horse and he wasn't going to upset her. Seems like her pony died last year and he thought she never would get over it. I did what I could." "Yeah," I said, hardly able to talk for the ache in my throat. "You did what you could, all right." Mason got a defensive look on his face. "Well, it's a good home." He had a good home. Mason didn't say anything, stepping on the speed a little when we passed a hitchhiker. "Mace," I said evenly, trying to keep my voice from shaking, "I am going to hate you the rest of my life for this. I mean it." Mason looked straight down the highway. "Who cares?" he said. But I'd seen a muscle in his jaw jump, and I knew I'd hurt him. It felt good. It was the first time I realized hurting somebody could feel really good.